topic around finding power and discovering our self-worth. And I'm really pleased to be able to introduce for you first this evening a performance by Lucky, and a song which feels like it was written really with this theme and this notion of finding power and discovering your self-worth in mind. Lucky.
Check, check. Self-worth, self-love. It starts with you. Let's go, Leicester. Never give up. Dealing with bereavement, never give up. Life can be tough when stuck in a rut. You're feeling not enough, don't ever give up. Battle with depression, never give up. Experiencing trauma, never give up. Keep moving forward, finding our love. You feel you had enough, don't ever give up. Trying to keep pure in a vicious world, a different breed. I know I'll be one, like a rose with thorns rising from the concrete, or a lotus flower that grows in a swamp. Meander through mountains, used to be cotton wool, feeling horrible. These times are too intolerable. Overcome these obstacles kinda seem impossible. I still refuse to be a patient in life's hospital. All these late nights, I wish I could erase time. It's a brave fight sometimes, having to face life. And sometimes my fears run by. I'm losing faith in the human race, and I'm soon to break, cause I care what people think. My glow is gone, but I'm still holding on. The soul is strong, express my emotions on this song. Never give up. Dealing with bereavement, never give up. Life can be tough when stuck in a rut. You're feeling not enough, don't ever give up. Battle with depression, never give up. Struggle with addiction, never give up. Keep moving forward, finding our love. You feel you had enough, don't ever give up. There's a silver lining in everything that we see. Forgive and move forward, they'll be setting you free. Give good wishes, pure feelings to each soul that you meet. The thoughts you think you feel first personally. People give presents, many gifts of hate, but it's in your power, you wanna pick up the weight. Don't let the behavior destroy your inner peace. Battling demons is the biggest enemy you'll ever beat. Negative thoughts can eat you alive, while positive thoughts can heal you inside. So ride the storm, visualize your form. Rise high now, don't hide behind the norm. Truthfully, life's an opportunity to see what you can be and grow beautifully. The wounds in your heart are soon to depart. Once you realize it's you who's in charge, it's you. Come across bullying, never give up. Dealing with bereavement, never give up. Life can be tough when stuck in a rut. You're feeling not enough, don't ever give up. Facing anxiety, never give up. Facing anxiety, never give up. Keep moving forward, finding our love. You feel you had enough, don't ever give up. My mindset before was awful and weak. Hold my head high now, move forward with ease. No one can touch me in my fortress of peace. And all the minor blows hide my growth and make your inner voice the kindest you know. Let's go, Leicester. You are peace, peace, peace. You are love, love, love. You are the soul, the soul, the soul. You are the hero actor playing out your role. Come across bullying, never give up. Dealing with bereavement, never give up. Life can be tough when stuck in a rut. You're feeling not enough, don't ever give up. Battle with depression, never give up. Experiencing trauma, never give up. Keep moving forward, finding our love. You feel you had enough, don't ever give up. Be the architect of your own destiny. It was all about the journey while reaching the destination. When things change inside you, things change around you. You are the stars, Leicester, that enlighten the whole world. Thank you very much. Thank you, Leicester.
Wonderfully creative response to our theme for this evening. And I think there was one line in particular that stood out for me there. Lucky referenced this notion of when you change yourself, where something inside you changes, things around you change as well. And I think there's something in that optimistic outlook and that positivity that we could all really do with indulging ourselves with and really taking on board and internalising a rather lot more than we do. Now, as I said before, we are really privileged this evening to be joined by Sister Jayanti. And if there's anyone who, for me, personifies a kind of relentless optimism and an absolute calm and dignity in the face of all else that we face in society around us. It has to be Sister Jayanti. And it can be all too easy, can't it, to become, I guess, rather overwhelmed or subsumed by all of the talk of crises and disasters and all the threats that seem to exist towards humanity and humankind here in the UK, but around the world more generally. But I think it's really important that we take a moment to pause, to reflect on the nature of ourselves as human beings, and to reflect what that really means about our own futures, but also the futures of those generations to come as well. So it gives me great pleasure this evening to be able to invite Sister Jayanti on stage. Sister Jayanti is the European Director of the Brahma Kumaris. She represents the BKs at the United Nations. I know that she's attended the Economic World Forum, and yet still finds the time to be with us here this evening and to share her perspective with us today. So Sister Jayanti, thank you. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti and good evening. And thank you to Andrew for a warm welcome. And it's lovely to be here with all of you. Can you hear me? It's okay? Okay, it's lovely to be with all of you here. I think after COVID, it's a real joy to come together with our family and friends and meet in this way. So thank you for coming. I was reflecting on the fact that within the rap, but also generally, people talk about the power of love, the power of peace, the power of truth. And these are terms that we sometimes hear. More often we hear about power in a negative way, and the difference is that one is where we're trying to exercise power and control over others, and the other is where we have an inner consciousness and an inner awareness of the power that is within, and we begin to experiment with using that in our lives. And so the greater power is the power within. Why? Because the external power, you don't know when somebody is going to snatch that away from you. You don't know whether that's going to lead to conflict. And in any case, if I'm trying to exert power over another, it's not a very comfortable situation for them, and they'll react and reject sooner or later maybe, but at some point. But when it's power within, and especially if it's the power of the original qualities of the self, then these qualities are things that everybody appreciates. And so it's a very beautiful experience for the self to connect with that power that lies within. But it's also then something that we can use to serve our family, our friends, and others around us. Think about how if there's chaos, and if even one person becomes stable and peaceful and calm, that atmosphere spreads all around and others begin to feel that also. I won't go into the detail of the story, but there was this situation of 9/11, and there was a person who was a meditator, and the tannoy was saying, "Stay at your desk, please do not move." He was in the second tower. The first tower had come crashing down, and people didn't know what was happening, what had happened, until later, gradually, people began to understand that the plane had hit, etc. But in the initial period, people just didn't understand. And so the second tower, and he's there, he was working for the New York Port Authority at the time on the 64th floor. And that was what the tannoy was saying. And he was listening, and meditators sometimes, rather than get influenced by outside circumstances, would tend to go deep inside and connect with the one above. And this is what he did. And after a few moments, he stood up and he said, it's open plan office, and he said, I'm going down, I don't know what it's going to be like, but if anybody wants to come with me, you're welcome. And 26, 27 people followed him. And as they came down from 64 floors, you can imagine somewhere there was no light at all anyway, but somewhere there were wires, somewhere there was water, all sorts of debris was already beginning. And they persisted and managed to come out. And as they came out, it crashed. But they were out, and we have a centre very close there. And so they'd come with tea and coffee to provide support for whoever needed that. And so these people just watched as this tower fell. But that one person who was very calm and peaceful was able to help save the lives of those who trusted him at that moment. It was a question of trust. Do I trust this faceless voice on the tannoy, or do I trust this person who I know? A difficult choice to make. Very difficult. Nobody knew what was going to happen. But those who felt that calm demeanor and knew him came out. And so my point that one individual who is peaceful can help others also stay calm and peaceful, and maybe at a certain moment even save the lives of many others. Andrew spoke about the various crises that we're facing. I learned something new yesterday. I learned a new word, and apparently it's the word of the year from last year, and it's called perma-crisis. The world seems to be permanently in a state of crisis now, not just sometimes on occasion, but just all the time. And not just one crisis, but many things all coming together. And so, when the world is going through all of that, where is it that I can recharge my battery? There's no one out there who has enough power, either for themselves or enough to share with me. But when I connect with the one above, and our understanding of the one above is very simple, just simply a being of light. No other form, no other image, just light. And so knowing that I am that inner being of light, and I'm making this as a statement without explaining it, and for those who are here for the first time, a warm invitation to come and find out more about what this inner being of light is all about. But when I come to that awareness of my own spiritual identity, not my physical identity, then in that awareness of the inner being, I'm able to feel the presence of the divine. And in that experience, I can feel love and peace and truth reaching me. And this isn't a unique experience just for a lucky handful. Anybody who comes to study for just an hour each day for a few days will be able to understand this and try it out for themselves. I was very fortunate. I'd grown up with these teachings at home. My mother, my grandmother were both studying all this. But then by the time I was 12, I was more interested in television and fashion and music. No surprise. And so that part of my life sort of faded away. But it came back again in 1967 when I was 18. And I had suddenly an out-of-body experience sitting in the lecture theatre at university. And that experience of just a few moments stayed with me. And it led me to come to India again, not just on holiday, but for an extended time. And it took me to the door of Dadi Janki, and I know many of you knew her and loved her, and she was an amazing person. And it's just 2 years since she flew away. But the legacy she's left behind is ginormous. It really is. And what I understood from her was something about the inner being. And I started to learn to meditate. And within that first lesson of the story of the inner being, of the soul, Atma, I think so many of my questions were answered that I could never have imagined was possible. But more than that, the experience that that is what life really is, that I am that inner being, not all of this, but that being within. And once you experience the being within, then it's very easy and natural to come to the understanding of the divine, the supreme, the being of light, the one who is the mother and father, the parent of all. And it takes just that one thought of going within, and second thought, connecting with the one above, and you're able to feel peace and love and truth reach you. And it's not just coming from outside, but it's also something that's coming from within. What happens is that we've grown so used to living in a materialistic world, in a materialistic state of consciousness, that we just think this is reality. But in fact, reality isn't just what I can see and touch, but it's a lot more than that. Even in this room, there are invisible energies. And I don't mean entities. I'm talking about electricity. Can I see electricity? I can't, but I can certainly see the results of electricity. The lights, the sound, the heat, the warmth. It's convincing me that electricity is real, even though I can't see it. I can feel it, I can feel the results. Exactly in the same way, although I can't see the soul, but I can feel what the soul is. I can think, I can be aware, I can touch my feelings, I can share my feelings, not just in words, but when there's empathy, you pick up the feelings of another. My personality, my conscience, my memory, all these things are real, but you can't touch them, they're not tangible. And so there's another dimension of reality which is real and true, not imagination, but you can't sense it with your physical senses, but you know that it is there, it is real. And this inner being is something that we've forgotten about generally. Even when we pray, we talk about the self as this person. It's fine to pray for my family, it's fine to pray for the world, but when I'm in that consciousness that I am this, and I'm praying, it becomes a one-way conversation. I am speaking to someone up there. I don't know who, I don't know what, or if there is someone up there listening, but with love and faith I'm committed, so I pray. But when I'm in the awareness of the inner being, not this, but the being that shines in here, the light that I truly am. And the image of light that you see behind me is not just a very external, gross image of the divine, but it's also the image of the inner being of each one of us. And so, if you want to see a picture of yourself, that's the picture of who you truly are. Not this, but the light that's shining just here. And when I begin to understand this and accept it and feel it and be it, then in that consciousness of my true identity, I'm really detached from the things that are happening around me here. And I don't mean that we disengage and go off into a cave or anything, but just a moment. Literally takes just one thought and you go inwards and you feel who you are with its own personality that is unique. This is actually not unique. How many other people would fit the same description? Height and weight and color of skin and color of eyes and color of hair. Millions. Same for this as same for anyone else. But there is no one, but no one, who would fit you as that living being, the conscious being, the light that you are, with your own unique personality. Literally, even two twins, they can look alike, but when you start talking to them and you get to know them better, their personality is quite definitely unique and different. Even the tone of their voice may be the same, but they are individual, unique beings. And it's an amazing thought that here in this world with a population of 7+, is it already 8 maybe? I don't know. But billions, and every single individual is absolutely unique, truly. And when I'm in this awareness of who I truly am, I can connect with the divine, and the influence of that allows that which is the highest, the goodness that I carry within myself, that light of the sun, allows that inner world that I carry within myself, it allows those treasures to emerge. And I begin to change my own way of thinking and being. Then instead of thinking, I am this, I am a peaceful soul. We usually say Om Shanti as a hello and goodbye and a greeting. It's a reminder, Om, I am, Shanti, peace. That is who I truly am. I'm not the external form. I'm not my profession. I'm not my career. I existed before I started on that profession. Before I became a mother or a father or anything, I existed already. But we tend to define ourselves by all these different boxes. But I'm something really, truly different and unique. And so in this awareness of the soul that I am, and allowing the influence of the light of God to shine on me through that connection of spirituality, of meditation, reflection, the inner qualities emerge. And as they begin to emerge, there's a transformation in the way in which I respond to people and situations. Where perhaps I would have reacted with impatience, now there's Om Shanti. And if you have to remind yourselves of Om Shanti 100 times a day, that's absolutely fine. Om Shanti is going to help you travel through all sorts of difficult terrain and still stay smiling, literally. And so the invitation is to go inside and make that discovery. And how it works is that if there's a seed, and the seed is alive, but it's latent, you don't see anything happening, but give it the right conditions, put it in the right soil, water it, allow the sun to cast its rays of warmth and energy on it, and the seed is able to germinate and is able to come about, and there's flowers and fruits and whatever else. Everything was there within the seed, but the conditions weren't okay for it to germinate and flourish. So within every single human being, that being, the human side, we know the physiology, but we know very little about the being usually. And one of the reasons why we don't know so much about the being is that we get caught up in the doing, all the doings, and we keep ourselves so busy and occupied with all the doings that really we forget about the being that we are. In fact, if we see somebody sitting quietly, we say, don't just sit there doing nothing. But in fact, what they're doing is maybe they are doing nothing, but maybe what you can't see is some very precious doing that's going on inside. They may be reflecting on the inner world. Maybe they're having an inner dialogue. Maybe they're going on that inner journey of self-discovery. And so they're not sitting doing nothing. They're doing some very important work. But you can see our association. If somebody is quiet, well, why aren't you running around? Why aren't you laughing and joking and talking? You should be jumping around, you should be dancing, all of that. And we tend to think that introversion is not good, it's not healthy, and extroversion is what it's all about. But yes, I very much enjoy life, I very much enjoy the company of others, but that's not going to recharge my inner battery. We've been talking about recharging earlier. If you didn't recharge your device, what would you do the next day? You'd be at a loss. You wouldn't be able to do all the things that you want to do. And yet, if you recharge the phone every night, next day you know it's going to be available for you to do whatever task you ask it to do for you. Same thing. We've been running around for 20 years, 30 years, 60 years, 80 years maybe, however long it is. And it's constantly energy that's flowing out and not really any method to recharge the inner battery. And I'm not surprised that the state of the world is as it is today. Way, way back, many years ago, the UN has conferences in different parts of the world, and this was on communities and society and so on. It was in Geneva. And so the person who was the director of WHO at the time came to this event, and he was speaking, and many years ago, and he said, the pandemic, and at that time HIV was the pandemic, he said that we are seeing the impact of HIV, but there's another pandemic which is very silent, that we're just beginning to observe, and it's a worldwide phenomenon, and we're beginning to see that it's actually multiplying, and it'll become a worldwide pandemic. And he was talking about mental health, and he said that the conditions of the world are such that they're conducive to creating mental illness rather than helping people find mental health and stability. Through COVID, we saw the result of that in a big, big way in many, many countries, especially the Western world, in terms of the loneliness and the impact of all of that. But even today, COVID is whatever it is now, quiet, latent, on the verge of coming again, whatever. But we're still seeing the impact of that loneliness, and where there was no possibility of grieving in a real way with family and friends, and the bereavement was so deep when our nearest ones were in hospital and we had no way of seeing them. Many things happened at that point, but what it's left us with is a situation in which people really feel quite disempowered. And the identity crisis that exists in the world is a big one, a huge one. Multicultural activities are wonderful. To be in a gathering that's multiracial is empowering. Multi-religious, just being in another gathering with our dear sister Baroness Verma, where they were talking about oneness and bringing all the religious traditions together. So all of those things are happening, but we're also seeing a constant increase in problems with mental health. And it's because we don't know how to recharge our inner battery. And it sounds strange, but silence is the way to be able to recharge. But not silence in which I'm going down into dark thoughts that are pulling me into a pit, but silence in which I'm able to generate pure, powerful thoughts that can lead me to that connection. And so finding my inner power is firstly going on that inner journey, secondly making that connection, and then I begin to feel the power of peace grow within me, the power of love being able to grow also, the power of truth. There are 5 original qualities of the self that every individual has, absolutely universal: peace, love, truth, joy, and purity. The combination of all these ingredients coming together is the energy of Atma, the energy of the soul, the energy of who I am. And I don't want you to take what I say at face value or sound value. I'd like you to find out more and experiment with some of these ideas so that you can see for yourself. But one very simple question: where are you more comfortable? In an atmosphere of conflict or an atmosphere of harmony? It speaks for itself. Our soul craves peace and harmony. Are you comfortable in an atmosphere of animosity or an atmosphere of love? I don't think we need to discuss it, it's pretty clear. Same thing. When you know someone's lying to you, is it comfortable or is it uncomfortable? And when your gut feeling about someone is that they're speaking the truth, do you feel comfortable or uncomfortable? I know sometimes truth can be very uncomfortable also, but the atmosphere that's generated when there's peace and love and truth and purity and joy, it's an atmosphere that is a magnet that draws us to itself. And this is because we resonate with the ingredients that also are part of me. And so this is why, even though we have very little peace in the world outside today, but the original qualities of the soul are these. And so we enjoy being in that atmosphere and presence. As we begin to experiment with that connection, so then we begin to recognize that through our day, sometimes we're not very peaceful. But the reason why we're not peaceful, if we start exploring it, then we see that instead of staying in that awareness of who I truly am, I've let that awareness slip and I've come into the awareness of the physical form. And that limited consciousness that's put me in this little box means that there's going to be worry, there's going to be anxiety, I'm going to get irritable, I'm going to get impatient. Just being in that box becomes the factor that creates all of these tensions and conflicts within myself. And when I'm ready to step away from this box and in that awareness of who I truly am, the unlimited consciousness, then in that awareness, I have the key to all the treasures that lie within the inner being. And so yes, we are truly powerful, more than we realize. We can truly be beings of love and truth, even though sometimes it feels very far away. But even though it feels far away, we know that deep in our hearts that that is what is real. That's the interesting thing. You know, if you've never tasted a mango, and that's probably not true anymore, but as a child growing up in England, mangoes were not part of what was on offer at the supermarkets. And in London at that time, there was one Indian grocery store. One. And they didn't import mangoes. And so the friends that I had, they had no idea of the taste of mango. And if I talk to them and say, it's very sweet, it's very delicious, they say, well, is it like a sweet apple, or a sweet cherry, or a sweet pear? And I'd say, no, it's not like that at all. It's something quite different. But it wasn't part of their experience. Now, the beautiful thing about the world is that there's so much coming and going. Partly that's beautiful, partly is dangerous. But people know about mangoes and its sweetness. And so, because we all long for love and peace and truth, it's actually an indication that at some point in its journey, the soul has had that experience. It's there deep within us. And so when we don't have it, we feel starved. Literally, it's as if we are starving. We are thirsty for love. We are starving for peace. But the problem is we're trying to find it out there, and it's not out there. It's deep within us. And so to go deep within the self and make that discovery is beautiful. And I hope that as you move forward on your journey, you not only discover a little bit of peace, a little bit of love, and stay content with that and say, well, that's fine, I've had a glimpse, I've had a taste, but know that you want to actually feel the power of these qualities so that you can be an instrument, not just for your family, but for your neighbors, for your community, for your people at work. You can be an instrument to share that with them. And this is such a great need in the world today. And each one of us can be an instrument to do that. It's not exclusive. It's not the right of just a few. It's the right of every human being to have this experience and share it with others. You've been very patient. Thank you for listening. And let's see if there are questions.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's always a real pleasure and a privilege to listen to you share. And I'm sure that you would all agree in terms of the insights that Sister Jayanti has been able to draw from her experiences, the many and varied experiences that perhaps enter into realms that some of us would never even quite imagine finding ourselves in. The world of the World Health Organization, the United Nations. And yet, what Sister Jayanti shared with us this evening, I think, are some insights which really are intended to resonate with us all at whatever level we perhaps think we might operate. And I wonder, Sister Jayanti, you used a rather beautiful analogy of a plant when you were speaking before, and connecting that with the idea of nurturing the self. And I wondered if perhaps you might elaborate a little on how exactly we go about nurturing that plant.
If I first of all believe that I'm the seed, I think that's a starting point, because so often we just forget about that and just get caught up in this identity. And so first step would be to come to that awareness and recognition that I, the inner being, am the seed. So how do I nurture it and water it? The soil that's needed is the right company. And so who is it that I surround myself with? Is it company that's going to pull me down? Or is it company that's going to uplift me and help me go further in my spiritual journey? It's a choice that I make. And sometimes we don't make it consciously because we're just simply pulled in one direction or another direction. But there comes a moment when, if I feel that life isn't going the way that I would like it to go, my career is fine, my relationships seem to be okay, but there's a feeling of emptiness within. And so if that's the signal, or if career is fine but relationships are not fine, that's another big signal. I need to look inside and see what's going on. And so having the right company is important. But then nurturing it means feeding myself thoughts that are going to be elevating me. And so what is that? What is the food I'm feeding my mind? Apart from work, and work is important, so I'm not taking that into that consideration, but television, is it healthy? Is it nurturing? Is it supportive? Is it empowering? I wonder. Maybe 1% out of everything that I'm watching. Video games. I've never played a video game, but what I'm told is that a lot of them are based on violence. And so I don't think that's very empowering or nurturing. The magazines, the books, I have a choice. What is it that I choose to read? Is it something that's going to uplift me and give me inspiration and help me move forward? And so I have to make a very conscious choice. And so then making those choices, if I'm interested in finding that peace, truth and love, then I'm going to make the choices that carry me further on that journey.
Thank you. And I think there's something very interesting there about shaping, in a sense, I suppose, shaping the world around you, as opposed to simply being focused upon oneself. And it makes me think of perhaps some of the critics of a topic like finding your power and discovering self-worth, and those who maybe focus on meditation. One of the criticisms might be that actually all of this is about ego, and all of this is about this turning inwards is actually, in a strange kind of way, a process of denial, of hiding yourself away from the realities that exist out there. And I just wonder how you might respond.
There's a very interesting subject that's been around about 30 years, and probably not more than that. And that's the whole area of positive psychology. And there's been a huge amount of research in that. And what they found was that if a person was a meditator, it was the only method to be actually able to increase the positive experiences of qualities within themselves, so that there was empathy, there was love, there was cooperation, there was joy. Say, for example, if eating a bar of chocolate gives you a kick and you enjoy it anyway, have chocolate and enjoy it. And then you reach a certain point where you can't take any more, right? And if you were to carry on eating chocolate, it would actually make you feel very, very uncomfortable and probably quite sick also. So whether it's somebody using drugs or alcohol or chocolate or anything, whatever it is that gives them pleasure or whatever that may be, but there's a certain threshold, and beyond that, it's actually a decline. And they found that the only way in which to increase positive, healthy feelings within an individual was meditation. Now, this is reality and not my understanding. It's research that's been actually done. And they found that with meditation, a person was more in charge of themselves, which meant that there were no negative outbursts or sudden explosions that could happen otherwise in some people. And so they found that relationships were much healthier. They found that the contribution of the person at work was greater than just the job they were doing, because relationships were much better, and so harmony and cooperation prevailed. Their physical health was much better, their stamina was better, their contribution to the world was far greater. Now, this is actual statistics from research. So I think that if people actually were to keep their minds open and try and understand what meditation is doing, they would see that a meditator is a bonus to society, and definitely each person who meditates offers a great contribution.
Thank you, and I couldn't agree more. And actually, as someone who, certainly by comparison with my counterpart on the stage today, feel very new to the experience of meditation, one of the things that I found most challenging actually is achieving the silence that you spoke about before. And I wonder if you're able to share perhaps some advice or some insights to help those of us that perhaps struggle to shut the brain down or to focus in the way that achieves genuine silence.
Raj Yoga, the path that we teach and follow here, is a little bit different in the way we approach silence to what most people would sometimes think about as silence, in that we don't say, stop your thoughts, full stop, don't think about anything, because that really is a very difficult state to achieve and not so useful. But what I'm doing when I meditate is I'm generating thoughts, but I'm in charge of what sort of thoughts I'm generating. Instead of just a reaction and a response to things, stimuli from outside, I'm actually becoming a creator. And I'm using, I've heard meditation being described as the highest creative action that one can actually engage in. And so I'm creating the right thoughts, but the speed of my thoughts slows down. And with that, it feels as if the pauses between the thoughts become longer and longer. And so there's a thought of peace, but then there's the actual experience of peace, in which I'm not thinking about peace, but I'm feeling it. And then the next thought comes. You know, just like with music, sometimes it's not the notes, but it's the space between the notes that's significant. Same thing. Between the thoughts, the pauses, and the way that, in a very natural way, the pauses stretch. You're in that experience, and so that is the silence. It's not a silence in which I've stopped thinking, but I'm very aware, I'm totally conscious, and so it's not that if something were to happen, I'd ignore it, but I'd reach out and see if there's help needed. So it's a little bit different to what people sometimes imagine silence to be.
That's really interesting. And I think we often, become preoccupied with time and think of ourselves as, what's a phrase that's often used, that we're perhaps, some of us at least, are cash rich but time poor. And I think that's almost an endemic feature of society, it seems. And often the complaint is, well, that would be very nice, but I really don't have the time. So I wonder again, perhaps if you have some advice, because clearly meditation and Raj Yoga is something that has sustained you for many, many years. So clearly it is possible to find the time. So I just wonder if you have any advice in relation to that.
Think about the time you spent watching television, and maybe you can reduce that time, and instead of watching television, spend a little bit of that time with yourself and get to know yourself a little bit more. Maybe there's something else that you're doing that maybe you could just reduce a little of that time. It's a question of what it is I see as being priority and important. Then I'll make time for that. You know, sometimes people's timetable gets turned around very dramatically. Something's happened and it's a priority and they have to make time. And so can I recognize that the inner being needs time for itself to be nurtured and develop and to flourish? I don't want to become sterile without that experience of love. I don't want to become peaceless and aggressive with myself inside. Everything starts inside and then gets extended outside. And if I'm at peace with myself, I can be at peace with you. If I have respect and value for myself, I can respect and value you. So when I begin to look at the whole phenomenon of inside out and how we're looking constantly outside and we haven't thought about the inside, then you begin to realize that I have to make this a priority. And first of all, even find out more about all of this. If it's a new area that's opening up, then let me at least walk a few steps along the way and see what it offers.
Thank you. And I wonder, actually, you speak about that journey inwards, and you spoke about that when you were sharing earlier. And I wonder if you can just take a moment, perhaps, just to share, I suppose, really what you mean by that journey inwards. But secondly, as a kind of follow-up question to that, if that's okay, is how do you know when you've achieved that authentic connection with yourself?
The inner journey begins by watching my thoughts. And I begin to realize that there's something deeper than just my thinking. I realize that there are feelings that I have. And normally I'd say, well, feelings just come. No, they don't. There's a reason why feelings come. And actually it's my thoughts that create feelings. And then I realize that there's something deeper than that. And that's my beliefs. And my beliefs are moving me in a specific way. And I may not have tested them, but I grew up with them. And so I believe them. But I don't know if it's true or not. And so can I start checking out that whole area of my beliefs and seeing, well, to what extent is it a reality and to what extent is it not? It's a very political statement I'm actually making, because there are so many beliefs we take as gospel truth and they're totally an illusion. And it's very important to understand that and to explore that for myself. Never mind what other people are saying, but can I explore that firstly inside? Well, why do I believe this? What is the reason that I believe it? Then to investigate and find out if I can get more information about this. And you go even deeper and you realize that you have certain personality traits, and maybe they came from your parents, they're learned behaviors, but they've now become part of my personality. And when I was a child and my parents behaved like that to me, I hated it. But today, I've taken those on for myself and I'm behaving in the same way. And so, are there aspects of personality that are actually not just learnt behavior, but are intrinsic to me? And that's when you get to the point of the truth, the love, and the peace. A little bit of meditation and you quickly catch a glimpse of it, but to get it on a lasting level, you have to go on that journey and dig inside. And then another part of the journey is the cleaning. So first it's the discovery, and then the washing. Cleaning out my feelings, cleaning out my emotions, cleaning out my beliefs, and unlearning many things. So that's why it's a journey. And so yes, sometimes people say, well, you know, aren't you bored with meditation? You've been meditating 50 plus years. No, it's never boring, it's never dull, it's constantly a very beautiful adventure, sometimes an uncomfortable adventure, because you're just, I'll give you an example. Until age about 23, I did not know I had anger. I really didn't. There'd never been a situation which I'd needed to get angry, but by then I'd gone through enough things to know that yes, it's there. And, well, the discovery was important, and then dealing with it took a lot of time. And yes, you can see changes of behavior in yourself, and so you know that you're on track. You're not at the point that you'd like to be, but you're moving in the right direction, so that's a good feeling to have.
There's a couple of questions from the floor. And so, whilst we have you here, Captive, I wanted to ask you those questions. So, if I could ask you first, one of the questions that we've had put forward is where do I get the inner power when I'm actually facing constant challenge?
I would suggest that you learn to meditate, and everything that we teach here is free of cost. It costs you your time, but not money. And once you've learned to meditate, if you make it part of your daily routine, and not just daily routine in the sense of morning and evening, but there's a system we have here which we call traffic control. And a very simple system, and you can set your watch to it, you can set your phone, but if it gives you a little signal, a little bleep or a beep or something, every hour on the hour, just take a pause. Maybe you want to take a drink of water at the same time, but just take a pause for 2 minutes and have your water, but also at the same time just connect and feel the power reaching you. It's there. And just 2 minutes makes a world of difference to the next 58 minutes.
Thank you. And final question, I promise. But how do I actually manage to maintain my sense of self-worth when actually everyone and everything around me seems to be putting me down?
It's a problem. In terms of the crisis of the world, it really is, again, that factor of just placing my worth in terms of the money I have in the bank, the skill set that I have or I don't have, the house that I own, all the externals. But my self-worth is in the value of the values that I hold, and to what extent I'm following those values through in my life, in my actions. And so if I can do that, just follow my values in the world, in the actions that I perform, my sense of self-worth and self-esteem will automatically develop and grow, and nobody will be able to take that dignity away from me.
And I think you spoke before as well about the choices that you make. I wonder if you could just elaborate a little more on how the choices you make impact the way you might react.
If I'm beginning my day with the recharge of the self and the traffic control system, then every thought is going to be moving in a very positive direction, because I'm there to check the attitude and change the personality and behavior, because I'm checking the attitude and how I behave. And so I'm more at peace with myself. I'm comfortable with myself, my conscience is clear, and that's making me powerful.
Thank you. I think perhaps a beautiful way to end as well this evening. Thank you very much. And I wonder if you'd be so kind perhaps to help us all take that first step towards inner calm and inner strength, and guide us through a period of silent reflection and meditation, please.
Thank you for your questions. Just let yourself sit comfortably, and the most comfortable way is to balance by keeping both feet on the ground and your hands on your knees or your lap. I'll speak out my own thoughts as I reflect and invite you to follow these ideas. I reflect on the things I've been hearing about, and I wish to experiment with some of these ideas. I visualize a spark of light shining in the center of the forehead. And this visualization resonates. I feel connected with the being that I am. And I watch my thoughts, and I choose one thought, the thought of peace. And as soon as I begin to think about peace, I can feel my body respond to that. My body seems to let go of the tension that I was holding within. My shoulders drop. The muscles relax. And I feel the impact of peace, not only on the body, but also on the mind. Peace feels comfortable and very natural. And in this awareness of peace, I sense the presence of the divine. The parent who is the ocean of peace. I stay in this awareness of peace. And feel the presence of the divine. And connecting with the source of peace. The power of peace from the source extends out to my entire human family. And peace opens the door to the experience of love. And I feel the power of love growing within the self. And the power of peace and love spread out into the world and transform the world, so that we move towards the light and the darkness ends. Keeping this awareness, I come back to the physical dimension. but now carrying the feeling of peace and love with me, so that these determine the quality of my thinking, speaking, and doing. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.